Peace and love, peace and love. It's Kawase L. I just want to drop some more information here today to build a medium of communication on the Constitution of the state of Georgia. Of course, whatever state that you're in, you want to pull up your Constitution and just read it for its value and tell the babies, tell the children, you know, how to secure their rights, how to defend their rights. And they're found within the constitutions, within the states, and within the United States with harmonized or should harmonize. So I'll give you all a few reference points here today as a background to comprehend more of the language when you're reading the Constitution. And this is the actual Constitution. I'm going to read some of it here today, and then I'll finish it. I'm going to try to go through all of it, the whole thing. And so I may do them in parts. So we'll go ahead and begin. And I don't know if you can see this here, but we have a little whiteboard. And let's see. And it's the Constitution, what we're talking about here today. And it's probably maybe flipped or reversed, but just bear with me. As we progress, we'll get better and better with our presentments of information. Just to stay focused, to keep the mind focused, to make sure we're doing our meditations, our sending positive affirmations in the universe, and not panicking, but also being proactive towards situations, current and later situations that we know to be the inevitable. So we'll be discussing here the Constitution of the state of Georgia. I underline this, the Constitution, and I also underline the state of Georgia. And I wrote here in a different color, 1983. The reason that I did that is because a lot of people say, you talking about slavery, or you talking about this was a long time ago. You know, it was a long time ago. This is a long time ago to the babies being born today. So I'm just trying to exercise, what is it that we're saying when we say things? What seed are we planting? And that's the agriculture of the mind, that we have a youth leadership program that we deal with agriculture. And we also deal with the agriculture of the mind, planting seeds in the mind. So even though this date is a long time ago, talking to the babies growing up, it's still just as valid then as it is now. This is the contract. The Constitution is the contract for those that are operating on the behalf of the state of Georgia. Later, we'll look into what is a state, what is the United States, so we can get a background of these words. And we're also going to look into the Black's Law Dictionary. I'm going to have the 6th edition, which is not the best version, but it's what we have here today. So we'll review the Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, abridged. I think it's abridged, or maybe unabridged. It's abridged, 6th edition, but you want the unabridged. And we'll look at some of these words. So let's see if we can find what a constitution is. Let's see if we can find what a state is. Not what we think type definition, but the actual black and white definition written down in books that the scholars use, your attorneys, your bar card holders, etc. And so anytime you're bringing a defense, you want to go back to the black and white. We know most of the times we're misused, and we've been kind of hurt politically or illegally in a legal capacity, making us kind of plead to nolo contendere, getting plea bargains, negotiation deals, forcing you to contract to give away your rights. We have to start referencing the Constitution, seeing what our defenses is, understanding that we have defenses, and that you yourself can read it and get to know what your defenses is and what it is not. And things are learned in degrees. So you won't go to a baby in the 4th grade and say, what's the quadratic formula? You know, you'll talk to them based on the level of grade that they're in. And the people of society on this topic are not at a certified degree or knowledge in this information. They leave it up to those called attorneys and lawyers, etc., as if themselves can't read. And those are internal problems that we suffer with because we're not reading enough, and it used to be part of our culture. So this is something relaxed, to be patient, and we'll take our time out to read and learn about the Constitution of the state of Georgia. I probably do one on the Constitution for the United States, but by having a background and what we're saying, though, not just what we assume or what's the assumption of the meaning, but knowing that it's variations of these words and that we have to be specific when we're, discussing, and especially when we're on the battlefields called the pseudo courts or the traffic courts. When you're on the battlefields, you want to be specific. You can't go in there, I'm black, purple, and green, and you have to know what you mean, and you have to be able to reference it and back up your claim. Your claim is your accusation, whether it's a defense claim or whether it's a petition or a plaintiff type claim, or you're bringing an issue before a court. You want to be able to back it up with black and white and not emotions, and that's what we suffer. And so I encourage all the churches that you know in your community, because we can't just count the churches out, as they play a part in our redemption, as well as the temples. Utilize your pieces and move forward. Don't get caught up in debates, as you have good pastors out here who want to do good. So take the fish and leave the bone, and move forward, and have your eyes wide open so that you can see your enemies, as clear as day. So don't be confused by what I'm saying to you today. The Constitution of the state of Georgia of 1983. Of course, this is other constitutions you can use. I just use this one to eliminate arguments and to show you can get it out of any constitution. So do your due diligence, and redemption of the mind, the agriculture of your mind has to start, and we'll start now. So let's get involved. We're going to look up Constitution, and I'm reading from the Black's Law Dictionary. Share, subscribe, like, comment, tell those who you love to take time out to learn, especially since school is out. Try to keep up with something, keep their minds going. And also, when school starts back, know that it's still your duty and your job to teach them things that are important. It's the school job to carry on the curriculum, to say that they done something for the people. But it's not necessarily their job to give you correct and information that you can use in situations that you may have in your lifetime. So know that school is just that. And as you educate yourself, as you do more learning, you'll see your options and the different options you may have. So let's look up Constitution. All right, so the definition of Constitution. Constitution, the organic and fundamental law of a nation or state. We'll look up state next. Which may be written or unwritten, establishing the character and conception of its government, laying the basic principles to which its internal life is to be conformed, organizing the government and regulating, distributing, and limiting the functions of its different departments, and prescribing the extent and the manner of the exercise of sovereign powers. A charter of government deriving its whole authority from the governor. So that's important. I'm going to read that again. We'll expound on that. It says a charter of government deriving its whole authority from the government. This is what the definition says. So what that's saying to you is that any government on the planet that's derived and has authority is the authority is given by the people who the government governs, who they look after, who they do things for. That is we the people. So every government is formed by the people by the authority of the people only, not by no kind of other authority created later. Any constitution created is created by the people for the benefit of the people and the posterity of the people. Okay? So know that government isn't here to tell you what to do. That is false. Okay? That is false. The government is here created by the people to make our daily lives easier. And if it's not doing that, it has been infiltrated. Not that it's not necessary. So don't look at it like government, forget the government and blah, 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 blah. Know that you in your mind need to know that the Constitution was adopted from Muslim law, and government is an ancient principle on the planet. So it's nothing new or that the Europeans presented to civilization. It's ancient on the planet. So comprehend the message and know that constitutions and government is of a necessity, but knowing the point of a government and not the government that has been infiltrated, that's actually a corporate venue for commercial activity being called government. Okay, know the difference, and that's when we'll review the Buck Act of 1940 and the Act of 1871 on separate videos. But I'll give you that reference point to review, so you can see for yourself how things changed and the point of what you're reading, because it's not meant what it seems to mean on the surface. So all constitutions are created by we the people, and the power is given by those who are governed. So the people that are governed mean the people that are that go get assistance, not because you're inferior or you're some lesser. It's because you created that. Your dollars, your energy, everything you do allows them to be able to do whatever it is they do, whether it's positive or negative. Your job is to correct it, as so secured in your First Amendment, your right to petition. But comprehending the message. So it says, a charter of government deriving its whole authority from the governed. The written instrument is a contract, you all. The constitutions are contracts. The written instrument agreed upon by the people of the Union, e.g. the United States Constitution, the United States. But we got to know what state means to comprehend the phrase United States, and know that it has multiple variables of meanings and not what they present or push to the masses. But don't believe that. Know that. Research, and it's clear in black and white. So the written instrument, the written contract agreed upon by the people of the Union, the United States Constitution, or of a particular state as the absolute rule of action and decision for all departments, i.e. branches, and officers of the government in respect to all the points covered by it, which must control until it shall be changed by the authority which established it. People, think about that. It says, and officers of the government in respect to all the points covered by the contract, which must control until it shall be changed by the authority. Authority is, everybody don't have authority. By the authority which established it. Who established the Constitution? Who established the government? We the people. The Moors of Morocco, Amexem, the indigenous Asiatic people established the constitutional frame of mind of utilization amongst one another in a uniform manner. And the reason that they say it unwritten is because this is natural. This is not something really complex, but the way that they have re-educated us or retaught us, we ourselves confuse ourselves with our own thoughts and our own intellect sometimes, or on the distorted intellect that we have due to all the distractions that enter our gates. You know, the gates, the things we say, the things we see, the things we hear, and how we filter it. So the government in respect to all points covered by it, which must control until it shall be changed by the authority which established it, i.e. by amendment. Amendment has to be ratified per how the Constitution for the United States was written. So you have to go look into your articles to see how is something amended properly. So just because you see an amendment in the Constitution doesn't mean it was ratified properly according to a constitutional agreement. So you have amendments that have not been properly ratified, making them unconstitutional, though they're there and you can read them in the documents, but they were based in fraud. So that's why it's important to know what a government is and when the government has been infiltrated. And the government is important to govern the mental minds of different beings for one collective goal, which is love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Islam. And in opposition to which any act or ordinance of any department or officer is null and void. I'm gonna read that again. I want you all to understand something here, because it just said statutes and ordinances are void. It doesn't matter. They don't apply to you. Okay? But everybody's that's, to me, almost like an agent is going to uphold without being able to reference what they're talking about. They just uphold the slavery without even being able to support what they're saying. I'm reading to you straight up definitions out of their books that the scholars use. Your fake leader gals are not going to do this for you. They're going to play games and waste time. Stay focused and on track. So, and in opposition, I'm going to start back up here. A charter of government deriving its whole authority from the governed. The written instrument agreed upon by the people of the Union, E.G., the United States Constitution, or of a particular state as the absolute rule of an action and decision for all departments, i.e. branches, and officers of the government in respect to all points covered by it, which must control until it shall be changed by the authority which established it, i.e. by amendment. And in opposition to which any act or ordinance of any such department or officer is null and void. I mean, it does not overweigh the Constitution. No statute, no code on the planet in North America outweigh the Constitution. The Constitution is black and white, and its Supreme Court rulings also in American jurisprudence that back up the constitutional decisions. Statutes and codes only apply to those who are in an inferior mindset. Okay. The full text of the U.S. Constitution appears at the end of this dictionary. In a more general sense, any fundamental or important law or edict, as the novel Constitution, as Justinian, the Constitution of Clarendon. And so that's what a constitution is, you all. Let's go to state and see what exactly is a state. Okay, the definition of a state. A state is a people permanently occupying a fixed territory. So a state is not the land. It has nothing to do with the physical ground. I repeat, a state has nothing to do with the physical ground, the soil, the ground itself. The land is North America, Al-Morocco, a Mexim, with many territories. So the state of Georgia is a territory, but you have territories layered over other territories. Okay, so a state is a people permanently occupying. So a state is just, a definition of a state is a people permanently occupying a fixed territory. So if a people get together with a contract occupying a fixed territory, you've created your own state. Each state is foreign to the next state, and we're going to read that in the definitions later in the information. So a state is a people permanently occupying a fixed territory, bound together by common law habits and custom into one body politic, exercising through the medium of an organized government, independent sovereignty, and control over all persons and things within its boundaries. There's no such thing as a sovereign citizen. So don't get sovereignty mixed up with you can't be sovereign and blend, turn around and put citizen with it. Sovereignty and citizen are two separate identities, so to speak, like two separate meanings, two different values. So you can't be a sovereign citizen. They both hold the same manner of a look. So that's an oxymoron if you put those together. You can't be a sovereign citizen, but you can be of sovereign authority. Okay. So sovereignty and control over all persons, and you have to look at what persons is. A person is a corporation, a firm, an individual. An individual is a corporation, a business. So know that you have to qualify yourself when saying words. If you're talking about political issues, you can't use the words loosely because they have specific meanings. And if you don't know, you'll be held at fault. And we wonder why we're suffering. But then we turn around and say nothing matters. That doesn't matter. What is he talking about? But then at the same time, the results are the results. So independent sovereignty and control over all persons and things within its boundaries, capable of making war. So you need your own weaponry. That's your Second Amendment. So you're protected to do all this. You just got to be willing to do it. So, capable of making war and peace and entering into international relations with other communities of the globe. The organization of social life, which exercises sovereign power in behalf of the people. In the largest sense, a state is a body politic or a society of men. A state is a body politic or a society of men, a body of people occupying a definite territory and politically organized under one government, a territorial unit with a distinct general body of law. So that and we'll read a little more of a state. The section of territory occupied by one of the United States, one of the component commonwealths of the states of the United States of America. The term is sometimes applied also to government agencies authorized by state. Did y'all hear that? I'm gonna read that again. It says the term is sometimes applied also to government agencies authorized by a state. So the state of Georgia has been authorized by the state republic by fraud and deception. Do you see what I'm saying? So you have the state, and then you have a state of Georgia. And that's when we get into the Buck Act and the Act of 1871. When you get a background of that, and you just not like, what is he talking about? You got to read those acts or default yourself and don't debate, because it's not an emotional type of topic. It's just you have to read the information. So the term is sometimes applied also to governmental agencies authorized by state, such as municipal corporations, which are inferior, any state of the United States, the District of Columbia, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, and the territory of possession subject to the legislative authority of the United States Uniform Probate Code. The people of a state in their collective capacity consider as the party wronged by a criminal deed the public, as the title of a cause, the state versus A.B. Term state as used in rules providing when a state may appeal in criminal case, and all inclusive and intend to include not only the state but in its political subdivisions, counties, and cities. A foreign state, a foreign country or nation. The several, listen to this, you all, so it'll eliminate debates. It's right here, okay? It says the several United States are considered foreign to each other, except as regards their relations as common members of the Union. So you have to be dealing with the Republic of the Union, not for, and I'm not going to get into that, but not in that manner, but the definition, not if he's a Republican or a Democratic, the persons as individuals, the definitions of the two bodies without people being involved, the definitions of a republic and the definitions of a Democrat. The Republic was formed by the aboriginals, the Moors, the Asiatics of ancient civilization reformed a republic. Okay. So a foreign state, a foreign country or nation, the several United States are considered foreign to each other except as regards their relations as common members of the Union. So you have to be part of the Union, and that's the organic constitution, not the corporate constitutions for commercial gain. And you have to know the difference, because a man who doesn't know his right doesn't have any, and nobody's to blame but the person that doesn't know, because you yourself didn't ask the right questions and you didn't fight the right fight. So it's no debating. So we looked up that. Let's also go to foreign state on the definition side. That was just a brief, like an excerpt of state. But the definition of foreign state here is nations which are outside the United States. Term may also refer to another state, i.e. a sister state. The term foreign nations, as used in a statement of the rule that the laws of foreign nations should be proved in a certain manner, should be construed to mean all nations and states, other than that in which the action is brought, and hence one state of the Union is foreign to another in the sense of that rule. Okay? So that's coming from your Black Law Dictionary and not just beliefs. Reference points, you all, reference points. Look into the Buck Act of 1940. The Buck Act of 1940, write that down, look that up. And the Act of 1871. The Act of 1871 is an act that created the United States Corporation. Okay? They created the United States Corporation. So it looked like, because people was used and knew that the Union was the United States, but they knew what the United States meant and what it indicated rather than assuming the meaning. And so what the Act of 1871 did was help bring confusion so that they could layer territories over other territories and dumb down the masses so that they could create an ordinance and a code. Do you know what a code is? Code is what it says. It's a code. It's meant to be hidden, but to be used as a weaponry. It's a code. So don't just, this is statutes and code. It's not. You're just saying it as if it's for you. You got to decode the code because it's been used to enslave you. Islam. And so the Act of 1871 is where they created the United States corporations and layered it over the Union of the Republic, the United foreign states to one another, the different tribes. And so know that the 1871 Act did that. But you look into it, research it yourself. I'm not going to go deep off into it, but I will in a separate video. I'll talk just about the Act of 1871 and that Buck Act of 1940. So the Act of 1871 created the United States Corporation, but the Buck Act of 1940 created the federal territories. They extended the jurisdiction. They extended the territory of the United States Corporation. Okay, remember, it's the Act of 1871 made it a corporation. So the Buck Act extended the federal territory by the issuances of social security numbers and people identifying themselves with the account number called Social Security. Go look at the back of your Social Security card and read it. And then the debate is over. It's not yours. It's not you. It only identifies an account that you use on the behalf of the natural man, the natural person, different from person, as we read earlier, or as I explained to you all earlier. So the Buck Act of 1940 created the states of, and it wasn't the Union State Republic, it was the state of Georgia. Instead of Georgia Republic, it became the state of Georgia. And this is a federal territory, and it's of the mind. The territories of the mind, and what you accept and what you don't accept based off of the knowledge or the degree of information that you've been exposed to, and that you've received and diagnosed and inwardly and became that and filtered out those things that you did not need without debating, knowing that it's a problem and knowing that you need to move forward according to law. And it gets deeper, but this is the commencement. This is the beginning of my information that I want to present to the masses. Excuse me. So notate that and write down the Buck Act of 1940 and the Act of 1871. Let's go look up the United States. Let's go look up the United States. The United States, you all. The United States. The term has several meanings. It may be merely the name of a sovereign occupying the position analogous to that of the other sovereign in the family of nations. It may designate territory over which sovereignty of the United States extends, or it may be collective name of the states which are united by and under the Constitution. So you have separate forms of the United States. It says the United States extends, or it may be the collective name of the states which are united by under the Constitution, which is what? A contract by who? By the people, which were who? The Moabite and Moorish people, Asiatic, etc., and later adopted by the Europeans for the organization of their what? Their state. What is their state? The United States Corporation. That's their state, their political agreement of body of people, organized government. So they're operating on the behalf of what the benefit of what they're trying to do. It's our job to fix the issues that apply to us. Nobody else is going to do it for you, and you see that. Okay, so you're going to have to educate yourself, or just stand beside and don't do anything or say anything, and those are our problems. Okay, dig deep within and motivate yourself and the babies. And don't leave them stranded, as it is a problem, because I'm presenting it to you. If you didn't know, you now know. Okay, Islam. So now we know a little bit about the Constitution of the state of Georgia, just before we even read any word on the actual contract. So let's begin reading some of the Constitution here. And this is of 1983. Of course, there are other constitutions, but I want no excuses for anyone. No excuses at all. Just you have to read what it is you have, diagnose it, and think about what you're thinking about, and see how do you build a defense on it with support with it. Supreme Court rulings, acts, codes that support what you're saying now. Not that they apply to you, but the codes that apply to those public officials, because they're in that fiduciary capacity. So any kind of support that you can use to bring an argument that benefits you, you bring that argument. You don't not do it because the other person said ain't nobody else never brought their argument up. It's all about who can argue the case and bring the facts. So that's why you have to read the constitutions, you all, and bring your facts based off of the black and white, not emotions, because I know you're right and that you've been mistreated and you've been done wrong, and wrong has been done to you and us and our families. We know that, we understand that, but how do you bring your claim in black and white so it can't be dismissed? This is how you do it. This is how you begin to do it. Okay, so we're going to read the Constitution of the state of Georgia preamble. To perpetuate. And when you just even look up the word perpetuate, you're like, what is this? But we're still going to decode the rest of it and see that you can take the fish and leave the bone. So it's to perpetuate. To perpetuate is not even to really do it. It's like you're just acting like it. To perpetuate the principles of free government, ensure justice to all, preserve peace, promote the interests and happiness of the citizen and of the family, and transmit to posterity, to the children, the enjoyment of liberty. We the people of Georgia, relying upon the protection and the guidance of Almighty God Allah, do ordain and establish this Constitution. So who established this Constitution? The people of Georgia. And people say, well, the Europeans were, but then when you do further research, you see that they adopted it. So before they was able to say this, they already had adopted it from Muslim law. But know that. And so don't think that the Europeans created the Constitution or that the founding fathers of the United States Corporation founded anything for us. They were the beginners of it. They founded it on behalf of those who did not know. So those who were oblivious to the fact of constitutional or civilized people, they founded that Constitution for those people who were uncivilized, but it was not founded, or they're not the founders for the aboriginals and the indigenous of the planet. Islam. So know that. Article 1. And go through your constitutions and circle, or know your articles of importance of most of your problems, because you won't necessarily have to read all of it, but go through it and read it, the first few times, so that you got an idea of how stuff works, and then get real specific in certain sections, so that you can fully comprehend what you need to comprehend and know, just an idea of what's going on. Get together with your friends and family and sit down and read a few articles a day. You don't have to read the whole thing. You can read article 1 through 5 with your friends and talk about just what you got out of it, and kind of have those conversations. So Article 1, Bill of Rights. Section 1, the rights of persons. The rights of persons. Paragraph 1, and make sure we look up persons so we know what's going on, but in a degree sense, know that this is the contract that you use to get yourself up to treaties, to get yourself up to international law. You have to know how to get out of the situation, out of the color that they've put you in, so that it's clear to all the listeners and those that call themselves jury. You can break it down to anyone, so that way they don't want you in the court, rather than you saying, I don't want to go there, I'm wasting time. Just clear up the confusion, because it's not that you're some kind of anti anything. You're just clearing up the confusion on where you stand and why you stand, where you stand, according to the black and white that was adopted by the Europeans. Section 1, Rights of Persons. Paragraph 1, Life, liberty, and property. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property except by due process of law. So don't let nobody tell you what due process is. Due process changes depending on the situation. Look up Google due process and look at different websites and different definition books. Look in the American jurisprudence. See what the Supreme Court has to say about due process, and understand how do you utilize due process. Are warrants signed when things happen? And if so, what authority, under what due process do people act? When they act outside of the Constitution, under what authority are they using? And so you have to know how to bring, you got to, even though that's true, how do you bring yourself out of that? By saying, okay, Article 1, Section 1, paragraph this says this, and this is what I'm saying. How do you bring yourself out like that? Life, liberty, and property. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property except by due process of law. So, sir, you pulled me over for a traffic stop. What caused you to stop me? And so let's look at that, though. Do you have a tag? So maybe he assumed that you're doing something you're doing a public transaction because you have your tag registered with the corporation of 1940. That's for business purposes. You have that tag on your private venue of conveyance. And so when he stops you, you're wondering why he stopped you, but he's stopping you on the public side of it. But you're talking private with public stuff. You see the problem? So the due process of it is you have to, well, what contract, are you holding me to? What's the idea of you stopping me? You're not going to educate him on the side of the road, but I'm giving you ideas, because this all goes all the way to court. This goes all the way to federal. If you want to bring your claim, if you want to be a plaintiff in the matter and sue him for his violation of his contract, of his oath, you have to know what due process is. How did he violate your due process? Because by due process, they're saying they can violate your life, liberty, and property by due process. So how do you clear that confusion? What is due process? Okay. And what does that all encompass? And so I smell marijuana. Okay, you smell marijuana and they tell you that's due process, but where in the Constitution is that due process? And then they immediately try to run the statutes and codes. So you have to be able to go inside of the Constitution where it explains that statutes and codes and ordinances are void if it's outside of the Constitution. So just because it's a created statute and ordinance or code doesn't mean it applies to you. Just because it's real and you can Google it and it says the United States Codes of Georgia and it has the whoever's signature on it doesn't mean anything. Okay, you have to know what you're saying, you know, when you're saying it. So where in the Constitution does it say if you smell marijuana you can violate and take my property? And having your support, like I say, through using your Constitution, through using Supreme Court rulings, through using international law, through using Sui Juris, your bloodline, your indigenous status to be different, to be respected as different in your own state, your foreign state, with your political agreement, which is the Zodiac Constitution. But if you didn't know that, you couldn't say that. So I'm only reminding you because I'm not giving you any information. It's already here, and I'm just reminding the people of a few things and giving you reference points to know that it's a problem. You can't dismiss it all. You have to, at some point, research something, or you yourself are a living carcass. You're living, but you're not fruitful. So in a sense, you're already dead. So this is the land of the dead right now, and we have to come back to our ancient selves to redeem fallen humanity inwardly. So this is only a seed that I'm planting. So that's just a concept, just to give you an idea of due process. Just because you smelt marijuana, is that actually due process defined in black and white? And where is that defined? And don't let them immediately go to statutes and codes and read, because of that statutes and code itself, if it violates the Constitution, it's void anyway. So you still got to base it off of, you got to have a foundation to stand on when you're bringing your argument. Paragraph 2. Protection to persons and property, equal protection. Protection to person and property is the paramount duty of the government and shall be impartial and complete. No person shall be not denied the equal protection of the laws. Paragraph 3. Freedom of conscience. Each person has the natural and inalienable right to worship God. So worship is in action, you all. When you go back and read the Bible, when they used to worship, they used to go sacrifice, the sheep or the oxen. They used to go sacrifice things on the altar and give it. That's what they said in the Bible, the Christian Bible. And so from hearing that story, we know that worship is a form of action. So when you hear this, don't think that it's just freedom of conscience. You act on your conscience. Your conscience is the seed to action. So freedom. So your paragraph 3, freedom of conscience, is dealing with what you do as in an active sense as well. Your thoughts grow into a seed. If you can only think it and you can't do it, that's restricting what you can think about. Because most people, what they think about is what they act on and what they do. So your freedom of conscience is if it's your freedom of conscience to smoke marijuana because you can write better music that you want to pass down to the next generations as a knowledge tool to reach their inward soul that necessarily a book or something else can't do, and you want to use your magic powers to use your artistic abilities as an artist or a rapper to reach a crowd of people. This is part of your religious freedom. You just do it in your own way, and you didn't know that it was a religious thing because you wasn't taught what religion meant. And religion ties back to nature and deals with your culture, the culture of you, the natural you. And a lot of times when we deal with rappers and artists, the natural them is what we get. And so that's part of your conscience, the freedom of your consciousness. So if you smoking marijuana is part of how you produce what you do, then for someone to tell you you can't have marijuana have just violated their oath, because no statute and code can override the Constitution, and there's no authority in the Constitution that talks about you not being able to have marijuana, not basing the argument in that debate, but knowing that they have to do due process or their claim is void from the beginning. And there's no argument because it's in black and white. So, but you have to know that and stand on it and stop looking for heroes and know that you yourself is the hero you've been looking for. It says, each person has the natural and inalienable right to worship God, each according to the dictates of that person's own conscience, and no human authority, this is what they're saying, and no human authority should in any case control or interfere. You can't have marijuana. You just interfere with my spiritual, if that's the case. If marijuana helps you do your music, if marijuana helps you meditate, if marijuana helps you calm down, if marijuana helps you cook, if marijuana helps you read, if marijuana helps, whatever, if it helps you do something, then that's what they're doing. You can have you fake leader guys come up with ways why, but it's a natural plant, and God put it here, and you yourself are outside of nature to defend such argument. And you yourself are problems. And these are the seeds they're planting in your babies to be less than what God put you here to be, defending Satan and the Lord's virtues of ourselves. And so know what the enemy is and what the enemy is not. It has nothing to do with colors. It has nothing to do with the European or the Asiatic on its merit. It's an inward thing, and you yourself have to change before you can expect others to change. Okay? Paragraph 4. Religion, opinions, freedom of religion. No inhabitant of this state shall be molested in person or property, or be prohibited from holding any public office or trust on account of religious opinions, but the right of freedom of religion shall not be construed to, it says, the freedom of religion shall not be so construed as to excuse acts of licentiousness, a license. So when you get a license, you're already violating yourself, but you didn't know what a license was. And that's why we need to look into this more. I'm beginning to read more about etymology, and we got to understand root words, and so we can see how it was genetically modified to mean what it means now. And you can see the point. Right now, you'll see, well, what's the point of the word being changed and what's all of that. You won't know until you read it for yourself and see the specific words that were changed. And then you can follow a path and see that words are weapons of warfare, and they can be used to control the energies of men and women. And until you see that, you're left debating, but not doing anything, but dealing with symptoms. Dealing with the symptoms of root causes, therefore being part of the problems. It's like doctors. Doctors treat, they say, I'm going to give you treatment. They're just treating the symptoms. They're not giving you, they don't say, I'm going to cure you from this. They say, we're going to treat you for this. So they're only dealing with the symptoms. And so you got to come to your own way of thinking. And you're back to your ancient selves and your own culture and real meaning of religion. And have to use that to redeem yourself. But the right of freedom of religion shall not be so construed as to excuse acts of licentiousness or justify practices inconsistent with the peace and safety of the state. The peace and safety of the state. So if you're not violating the peace and the safety of the state, and somebody's attacking you through these mechanisms of war, then your so-called political group has been infiltrated. But the only people that can recognize it is the people who created it. So you have to know what's going on. You're accountable to fix it, and don't just look around for people you're voting in office to fix it, because it won't happen that way. Okay. It has to be a change from we the people, because we're the ones who are to monitor and to keep in check and balance those that we put into a what you call fiduciary in a capacity of trust, a public office. Okay. Paragraph 5. Freedom of speech and of the press guaranteed. No law shall be passed to curtail or restrain the freedom of speech or of the press. Every person may speak, write, and publish sentiments on all subjects, but shall be responsible for the abuse of that liberty. So any publication company can't, if you want to talk about nationality in your local county newspapers, to put out the information so that some Europeans are out here to help you. They don't know you exist. So Moors, put the information in your news if that's the angle you're taking, and talk about, the Declaration of Independence. Make your city councilmen recognize the Moorish Americans as indigenous of North America. Do these things as your due diligence and as your freedom of speech. If you're in this territory, in the Republic, being assumed as the state of Georgia, you want to be able to get out of the fraud by using the fraud for a benefit for you. Okay. So paragraph 6. Libel. In all civil or criminal actions for libel, the truth, listen to this, the truth may be given in evidence. So if there's no evidence, I seen you without your seatbelt, where's the evidence? I smelled marijuana. You can't even evidence that. To just be able to violate your secure, the only protection that one of the most supreme protections that to have is the right to your property. So if somebody smelling something overrides that, you need to look into what code did that and who signed it, so you can sue them for violation of your constitutional rights. So who's holding accountable these codes and ordinances, and hold a specific individual accountable and violate them based off of the contract in black and white, and just read and find what you want to violate them on. Conspiracy against rights, color of law, color of authority, color of office, violation of your constitutional secured rights, genocide of birth rights, genocide of nativity, etc. And so it says the truth shall be given in evidence. So you look up what evidence means, and whatever that means is that's what it is. You can't say I stole this if there's no camera saying that if you don't have this and my fingerprint's not on it, or if I wasn't there. You have to have some kind of evidence that proves these claims, even evidence that you are a United States federal citizen, corporation. What made you even think I was a United States citizen? Where's the evidence? Not what you thought, or then they'll say the birth certificate. Well, where's it at? Where's the evidence that me as an adult in the age of a majority was aware of such contract, meeting the requirements of a contract, a meeting of the minds? What baby had a meeting of the mind with professionals, authorities, and signed the contract called the birth certificate? So the birth certificate is something assumed. You never signed it knowing what it was or anything, and you still don't know. So this is evidence, though. So if they say that this applies to you, well, I'm not even a United States citizen. I don't have knowledge of that. Where's that evidence that for me? And if not, then you start to see who is terroristic and who's not, because this is the authority. Anything outside of this is somebody got an agenda and somebody wants to deprive you of something. So it's not that the Moors are belligerent or out of control. It's that somebody's not educating themselves properly. And once you do, you know that the truth may be given in evidence. So if I'm a United States citizen of the federal corporation, prove it in evidence, or your claim is to be dismissed based off of violation of paragraph 6. The truth was not given in evidence. There's no claim here. And if it shall appear to the trier of the fact that the matter charged as libellous is true, the party shall be discharged. So it says in all criminal and civil activities, it shall be discharged. Why are people going to jail? I'm just reading, it says shall be discharged. So why are people going to jail for traffic violations and marijuana infractions and codes? If it says here, all civil and criminal activities are to be discharged, if the trial of the fact is to be found true, that it shall be discharged. Why isn't these cases just being discharged? Why are people going to jail and being deprived of their right to life, liberty, and property, or the protection of persons and property and equal protection, or the freedom of consciousness, or religious opinions, freedoms of religion? Do you see the problem? So this is your lawsuits, and just follow the federal rules of procedures and see what you're suing them for, and base it off of the black and white. Paragraph 7. Citizens, protections of all citizens of the United States, resident in this state, and then resident is a thing identified. Res meaning a thing, ident, identified. So are you a thing anyway? No, you're not a thing. So you're not a resident anywhere on the planet. You domicile, or you exist in areas at all times of existence, but you're not a thing identified in a business called the state of. You're not that, okay? You're in the Republic, and you domicile in North America. So all citizens of the United States resident in this state are hereby declared citizens of this state, and it shall be the duty of the General Assembly. You have to look up what your General Assembly is. Each General Assembly of each state has a House and a Senate, and that makes up your General Assembly, and that's who passes your legislations in each individual state. You have your own General Assembly to enact such laws as will protect them in the full enjoyment of the rights, privileges, and immunities due to such citizenship. So it's like something that you're doing by choice. It's not something you have to have. It's United States citizenship. Paragraph 8. Arms. Right to bear and right to keep and bear. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, but the General Assembly shall have the power to prescribe the manner in which arms may be borne, not in violation of this. So you don't need a license to do something when they just told you it was already secured by divine law. They just wrote it in black and white to remind the people. Paragraph 9. Right to assemble and petition. The people have the right to assemble peaceably for their common good, and to apply by petition or remonstrance to those vested with the powers of government for redress of grievances. So it's your job when they wrongdo you. You got to get together and you go take the necessary steps to make the change. Not just marching and praying. It's filing claims, getting people out of there, holding people accountable. Paragraph 10. Bill of Attainder, ex post facto laws, and retroactive laws. It says no bill of attainder, ex post facto law, retroactive law, or laws impairing the obligation of contract or making irrevocable grant of special privileges or immunities shall be passed. So any statutes and codes that's something special, that's outside of, that's something you already can do. If it's special, it shall not be passed, and it doesn't apply, and it's not retroactive. And every suit that you get that they call a traffic citation is really a bill of attainder, and they're suing you. And so the person who sues you can't serve you as well. So know that that's part of the due process that we talked about earlier. So they're committing fraud on the due process side of things, because they're giving you traffic citations saying that they're traffic citations, but they're bill of attainders. And it said here, no bill of attainders, ex post facto law, retroactive law, or laws impairing the obligation of contract or making irrevocable grant of special privileges or immunities shall be passed. So if anything like this is passed, anybody using this kind of stuff, then they're committing fraud and they're waging war against the Constitution. So they couldn't call it a bill of attainder. They had to call it a traffic citation. Do you see the point of words? Paragraph 11. Right to trial by jury. Number of jurors, selection, and compensation of jurors. A. The right to trial by jury shall remain inviolate, except that the court shall render judgment without the verdict of a jury in all civil cases where no issuable defense is filed and where a jury is not demanded in writing. Because remember, it got to be evidenced. See how they're supporting what they're saying? It has to be in writing. It has to be evidence in writing by either party. In criminal cases, the defendant shall have a public and speedy trial by an impartial jury, and the jury shall be the judges of the law and the facts of the law, not statutes and codes. So when they're in court reading, talking about a statute and code, you immediately can recognize that you're outside of general law. You're outside of the Union States Republic. You're dealing with a civil matter with some kind of breach of contract because they're dealing with statutes and codes. So immediately, when you see them dealing with statutes and codes, they're not dealing with law. They're dealing with what it says, statutes and codes. And people say, well, statute and codes are law, and they mix it up. But it's a statute and code, and it's a law for those that are in a public capacity. But the law for the people is the supreme law of the land. Okay, know the difference, Islam. So it says, and the jury shall be the judges of the law and facts. B, a trial jury shall consist of 12 persons. But the General Assembly, so when they try to make a quick court and put 6 people, let them know, come here, so I want all 12. You want 12 people to say you're guilty. But the General Assembly may prescribe any number, not less than 6. The General Assembly. The state courts are not the General Assembly. Not less than 6 to constitute a trial jury in courts of limited jurisdiction. What is jurisdiction? Understand jurisdiction, status and standing, you all. Nativity and nationality. And in the superior courts in misdemeanor cases. The General Assembly shall provide by law for the selection and compensation of persons to serve as grand jurors and trial jurors. Paragraph 12. Rights to the courts. No person shall be deprived of the right to prosecute or defend, either in person or by an attorney, that person's own cause in any of the courts of this state. So that means you don't have to have an attorney to represent yourself in court. You can have a counsel. You can have a body of people that come in court that talks and helps you with your court case. Whether they pass the little swing door, what they call the bar or not, they can stand in court with you, and you can take time to consult with them to get help with your cases. You do not need an attorney, and you have the right to defend or prosecute, and they can't charge you for it. Okay, and your defense is this. Okay, in any constitution, find your defense. Rights to the courts. No person shall be deprived of the right to prosecute or defend, either in person or by an attorney, that person's own cause in any of the courts of this state. Paragraph 13. Searches, seizures, and warrants. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue except upon probable cause supported. So probable cause is not just them smelling it. They got to go get a warrant based off of that probable cause. You got to go get your warrant. I mean, that's what they just told you that. I'm not saying it. It says paragraph 13. So if after they smell it, that's probable cause to go get a warrant. Supported by oath, saying whatever their claim is. If they're not doing that, they're violating you. Sue them. Breach of contract. Paragraph 13. Searches, seizures, and warrants. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue except upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, particularly describing the place or places to be searched and the person or things to be seized. So they can say that marijuana is a probable cause when they smell it, but supported by what authority? See the evidence that you need. So I hear what, if you was in court, I hear what you're saying, But where was your delegation of authority? Under what power did you do that? I know that you say that you had probable cause, but show me the document that gave you that power. And they'll immediately go to statutes and codes. And so you can do a constitutional challenge. If that statutes and code is violating your constitutional secure rights, it's void. It doesn't apply to you. It doesn't matter how long ago, when it was written, who signed it, or what it was for. It doesn't apply to you if you can prove that it violates your constitutional secure rights. Okay, that we the people must enforce, not the government to enforce what your secure rights are to you. You see what I'm saying? That's backwards, and that's not the way it works. And those who are telling you that are your enemies in the spirit, and they're causing you issues later in the future when you'll come back and have this problem through a spiritual journey. Okay? So, know that what probable cause deals with due process, and probable cause is not just no sole person acting on his discretion. It has to be an authority given. Okay? Paragraph 14. Benefit of counsel. Accusation. List of witnesses. Compulsory process. Each person charged with an offense. It says each person ever charged with an offense against the laws of this state shall have the privilege and benefit of counsel. It don't say of an attorney or a lawyer. It say the benefit of counsel. Shall be furnished with a copy. You shall be furnished with a copy of the accusation or indictment, and on demand with a list of the witnesses on whose testimony such charge is founded. So you see how they suing you? They're calling it a traffic ticket, but they're really saying that that's the accusation. But based, what are you saying I violated? Based off what contract? You saying that I was speeding based off of what agreement? Did I say, you see what I'm saying? You got to see, what contract is he basing his claim off of? And so his accusation or indictment has to be presented to you. And so whoever's accusing you of it can't serve you with it as well. So who's bringing the accusation? The state of Georgia is a corporation. So what person, the officer can't bring the accusation and serve you and lock you up and do it. It doesn't, that's not the balance of power. And if that's happening, then you've been infiltrated. And that's the problem. And you will refuse to look at it. And you'll act as if it don't matter and continue to suffer. But who's at fault? So benefit of counsel, accusation, list of witnesses, compulsory process. Every person charged with an offense against the laws of this state shall have the privilege and benefit of counsel, shall be furnished with a copy of the accusation or indictment, and on demand with a list of the witnesses on whose testimony such charge is founded, shall have compulsory process to obtain the testimony of that person's own witness, and shall be confronted with the witnesses testifying against such persons. Habeas corpus, paragraph 15. The writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless in case of rebellion or invasion the public safety may require it. Paragraph, and this is important right here. I need, because this is in your Kwanzaa events. This is in the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People, Declaration of Rights of Human Rights, Rights of the Child, and it's sitting right here in the Constitution. But we're not taking the definition for value. So let's look into paragraph 16, self-incrimination. And self-incrimination can be looked at, you have to be self-determined. Self-incrimination, you have to be determined enough to know that you have a position and you got to play your position. But without self-determination, you incriminate yourself because you're not asking the right questions. You're not standing in the right squares, and your arguments are based in the fraud rather than separating yourself from the whole situation. So self-incrimination, when your name is being capitalized, that's capitalist dominion, and that's when you lose your political status due to the capitalization of the word shows that one has been civilly killed, civil term mortus. And so you incriminate yourself by saying, yes, I'm such and such John Doe in all capitalized letters, because a proper noun is not that. And so how are you referring to a live being as all capitalized letters? And that's another conversation. And of course, look into Civitar Mortuus, Capitalist Dominum, and look into like your political status, standing, and adjudication, jurisdictions, and look into the self-determination and how it applies to being self-incriminating, incriminating yourself. Driver license and registrations, please. And you haven't positioned the conversation. You immediately say, "I'm not driving," and you're self-incriminating yourself as if he was talking about something in the first place. So you already participated in this argument. So clear up the confusion. Well, sir, before we continue, if you would like to contract, if you would like to leave with my signature here today, or any kind of verbal consent for me to meet up with you to deal with Federal Reserve notes, I need you to sign this contract as you're in your constitutional capacity under oath right now, correct? Different things of that nature, setting the foundation for your argument instead of arguing the symptoms is no point. Fix the root issues and be humble and sincere, and don't get caught up in debates. And of course, this is more just leaning towards this, but we'll have more information soon that we can go off into other topics. Self-incrimination. No person shall be compelled to give testimony tending to any manner to be self-incriminating. No person shall. So are you operating this vehicle? Are you driving? It says here that all police officers take an oath to uphold the Constitution, by the way. So it says here, paragraph 16, self-incrimination. No person shall be compelled to give testimony tending in any manner to be self-incriminating. So if they're making you self-incriminate yourself, they just violated their oath, sue them. It's void. Whatever they did is void. Paragraph 17, bail, fines, punishment, arrest, abuse of prisoners. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Nor shall any person be abused in being arrested while under arrest or in prison. Paragraph 18, jeopardy of life or liberty more than once forbidden. No person shall be put in jeopardy of life or liberty more than once for the same offense, except when a new trial has been granted after conviction or any mistrial. Paragraph 19, treason. Treason against the state of Georgia shall consist of insurrection against the state, adhering to the state's enemies, or giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason except on the testimony of two witnesses to the same overt act or confession in open court. So that's why you take people with you when you're dealing and you need to talk to the supervisors, or if you're going through situations, or if you're recording, going live with your body cam on so that your hands are free. You want to do that so that you can get your two witnesses. If you have two witnesses that seen this happen, then that's treason. It doesn't matter what people think. You go look up the definition of treason and see what it means in its entirety and the different backgrounds and cases of treason, and see if these people are committing treason by telling you something outside of the information written here. So treason against the state of Georgia shall consist of insurrection against the state, adhering to the state's enemies, and the enemy is anyone who want to not do us in here, and the United States, the Constitution for the United States. Any enemy is a person who opposes that through color of law, through manipulation, through sorcery, and different things of that nature, voodoo. In aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason except on the testimony of two witnesses to the same overt act or confession in open court. Paragraph 20, conviction, effect of. No conviction shall work corruption of blood or forfeiture of estate. Paragraph 21, banishment and whipping as punishment for crime. neither banishment beyond the limits of the state, nor whipping shall be allowed as a punishment for crime. Paragraph 22. Involuntary servitude. It says, there shall be no involuntary. But it don't say if you volunteer to be a slave, guess what? You can still be a slave because you yourself have volunteered to be it. So don't say I'm not no slave and blah, blah, blah if you don't know the point. There shall be no involuntary servitude within the state of Georgia except, so they just said it can be there, except as a punishment for crime after legal conviction, therefore, or for contempt of court. So know that legal and lawful are two different terms, or they would just use the same term throughout all of the information, but it is specifically used separately in different paragraphs. Paragraph 23, imprisonment for debt. And this is important because everybody's violating this. Every charge you get, and if you don't pay it, well, they swear we're going to lock you up. You just come to paragraph 23 and say you're violating the contract, man. You're committing treason. Just get two people to see them say that you're going to jail for not paying something, and you sue them for everything that they could ever have. Okay? Imprisonment for debt. There shall be no imprisonment for debt. Paragraph 24. Cost. No person shall be compelled to pay costs in any criminal case except after conviction on final trial. So this is what you use if you need transcripts, if you need something from the court, if you need to petition it, whatever you need, it shall be no cost from the court until after trial. Now, if you're found guilty, you may have to pay those fees. If you know what I mean, I just want you to see the points, and then we'll bring the argument. We'll raise different arguments. You know, but I want you to get a foundation, and then you raise yourself up to know about nationality and treaty. But nationality is first. But I'm saying in your argument, you need to bring yourself out with this, knowing how to communicate with the fraud that they're presenting. Because they act oblivious. So you bring it here to what you know they go by, and you bring yourself back to the treaties and eliminate their debate from the surface of the planet forever. Cost. No person shall be compelled to pay costs in any criminal case except after conviction on final trial. Paragraph 25. Status of citizen. So what is your status? You don't know that. So research. The social status of a citizen shall never be the subject of legislation. The status of a citizen, the social status of a citizen shall never be the subject of legislation. Okay. Statutes and codes is legislation from the General Assembly. It is not law. Okay. It's statutes and codes and legislation from the General Assembly. Paragraph 26. Exemption from levy and sale. The General Assembly shall protect by law from levy and sale, by virtue of any process under the laws of this state, a portion of the property of each person in an amount of not less than 1,600, and shall have the authority to define to whom any such additional exemptions shall be allowed, to specify the amount of such exemptions, to provide the manner of exempting such property, and for the sale, alienation, and encumbrance thereof, and to provide for the waiver of said exemption by the debtor. Paragraph 27. Spouses, separate property. The separate property of each spouse shall remain the separate property of that spouse, except as otherwise provided by law. Paragraph 28. Fishing and hunting. The tradition of fishing and hunting and the taking of fish and wildlife shall be preserved for the people and shall be managed by the law and regulation for the public good. Paragraph 29. Enumeration of rights, not denial of others. The enumeration of rights herein contained as a part of this Constitution shall not be construed to deny to the people any inherent rights. Your inherent rights are your birth rights. So that goes back to treaties and your right of blood, your right of birth, and being indigenous and being recognized as different, but being respected as everyone shall be respected as normal beings. The enumeration of rights herein contained as a part of this Constitution shall not be construed to deny to the people any inherent rights which they may have hereto enjoyed. Islam. And so I'll come back, because I try to keep them short as I can. So I'll come back and we'll start back up with section 2, the origin and structure of government. And we'll read a little bit about the origin and structure of government. And I'll see if I can find some pieces of background information that, if we need to, that helps give you a background before we begin, like we did in Article 1. So you can see how much detail. It's not just reading it and then say, oh, I read it. We got to make sure we're sound on some of the stuff and open still to be critiqued and to be sharpened through, communication and other positive, healthy conversations with your brothers and sisters that may enlighten you to some things you may not have known. So I'll be back soon, you all, with section 2, the origin and structure of government. So peace and love. Traverse safely. And with the coronavirus, do not panic. Think for those who can't think for themselves. In case of a panic, you can result to less destruction as possible if it continues to go on. Just be proactive, and we Moors on all situations have to start to be proactive and just having a plan, not necessarily saying it's going to happen, but if it did happen, immediately being able to act without being startled and already knowing all things, as Islam is universal and meaning master, and not of some things or some topics, but to manifest to our ancient selves and to become that which we know. So I self law and master is a universal thing. So peace and love as we traverse, build in love and light. All praise to the noble prophet Drew Ali. Ashe.